Welcome to Cover to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. Our guest today comes to authorship from an unusual perspective. Bo Bancroft is a Buckeye by birth and early life who later bounced around the U.S. with stops in Hawaii, South Carolina, California. The latter found him inside costumes portraying elephants, dancing bears at Disneyland. He ultimately settled in Atlanta, where he put his marketing degree from Miami to use working for Turner Broadcasting, Fox, Motorola, Scientific Atlanta, among others. These days, though, he's working with Habitat for Humanity, finding the switch from corporate America as, quote, extremely rewarding. Now he's added novelist to the list with a debut novel, Make America Beautiful Again. One of the real delights of being a book interviewer is getting in on the ground floor of what promises to be a thriving career. And as such, we are very pleased to welcome Bo Bancroft.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the generous introduction.
All right. Was there an event or a series of events to lead you to turn your hand to writing?
I think, as most individuals who love to read, and that really is a passion of mine, the thought of writing had germinated for a long time. What really became the driving force for me was as our world gets more complicated, as our politics gets even more entrenched in extremes, I, as an individual, began to feel that my voice was getting lost in the noise. And I decided that writing a novel was the best choice for me to go ahead and try to have a voice. And I chose satire because I really didn't want to be another angry person just screaming and yelling about things. I wanted to have fun, and I wanted the reader to have fun. So it was quite an inspirational period of time for me.
Make America Beautiful Again is a political thriller of the sort they used to call a roman à clef, or a story with a key. That is, readers will recognize fictional versions resembling very real people, which is part of the fun. And I don't think people have much difficulty in picking up those references. And I have to ask, did you have as much fun writing them as we do reading them?
Thank you, Roger. I had an absolute blast. I am an individual that still loves to read the newspaper. And one of the things I love about the newspaper are comics and political cartoons. And I must admit, I tried to tap into that fun that they have with characters in the writing of my book. And there were a couple characters. Interestingly enough, it was very easy to write about people I disagree with. I probably had that as the most fun, because that was really the easiest, at least in my mind, to tease. So yes, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully it's a lot of fun for the reader. That's my goal.
Well, I'm going to bounce around in reference, because one of the things I do is I take notes when I read books like these. And as an old newspaper editor and reporter and columnist and whatnot, among other things, I wrote this quote down with great glee. It says, like so many, he relied on the multiple electronic options available for getting the news and had forgotten the pleasure of reading the paper. No shrill voices or loosely verified facts. His brain processed information instead of someone interpreting a video clip. It was calmer, more civilized, and downright relaxing, particularly when the news was good. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I meant that from the heart. That's exactly how I feel. It's newspapers, unfortunately, are not in vogue right now, and I continue to hope for the day that readers appreciate the value of the printed press. There are some extremely talented journalists out there. So,
great. Well, the novel set in Georgia, which has become your home, and which is and has been very much in the news for some of the political intrigue surrounding the last election. And I think we already answered the question, but my question here, was there an indignation factor that played into your plot decisions?
Yeah, most certainly. I've lived in Georgia for a long time, and so I've seen the political pendulum switch both ways. When I first came here, it was one party that was entrenched, and then now it's another party, and we're in that influx of where the power shift is occurring again, and it's really, really ugly right now. And that's a lot of where my indignation sits. I'm a firm believer in the color purple. The Constitution was written as a means of compromise, and I really tried to make the point in the book that, you know, through people, through personal connections, and through finding middle grounds, is really the best way for us to make our country beautiful again. But absolutely, I have a lot of indignation about politics right now, and my wish that we would find a better balance.
I think a lot of people share that wish, but are outshouted by the people on the extremes. It's my personal opinion there. I'm not trying to steal yours.
No.
Kirkus Reviews said, "Make America Beautiful Again" carries, and I quote, "romance of Tom Sawyer-esque protagonists battling politicians." Getting compared to Mark Twain, that's pretty damn interesting.
I have to tell you, Roger, I was very flattered with that, and you know, on my website, bobancroft.com, I've also gotten some comparisons to another one of my heroes, Carl Hiaasen. But I have to say that was very flattering. I think so much of that comparison comes from the fact that, like Twain and so many things, I focus on the outside. I focus a lot on the outdoors and just the simple adventures of life. But yes, I was. I have to admit, you know, as a first-time writer. Again, this was a passion. It's something that was fun for me. To have that type of validation was truly exciting, and I appreciate it. Yep, it's great stuff.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned outdoors, because it leads me to another question, where actually observation/question. One of the keys of a good writer is finding the telling detail, and I like the different takes on the reaction to nature from Maggie and Seamus. Maggie, quote, "The wilderness is manna for the soul, rather. There's nothing else like it." What Seamus said, he liked the outdoors and stargazing was fun, but something about sleeping unprotected with beady eyes and fangs lurking in the shadows unnerved him. Those are nifty little character building pieces.
Well, thank you. And I think a lot of that is personal, because I've made the transition from Seamus earlier in my life being afraid of those beady eyes and fangs to now being a Maggie. That I was just up in the Georgia mountains 2 weeks ago with a hiking buddy, and we came across a family of bears, and my hiking buddy was terrified, and I thought it was the best thing in the whole world. And it's fun. I think maybe as you do get older, you can appreciate the outdoors, but there are a lot of Seamuses out there that I hope will understand the beauty that Maggie felt.
I'm bouncing around all over the place here because I took so many notes, and I'll try not to bore you with all of them, but I always enjoy writers who send me to the dictionary or Google to learn about something. In this case, the Haitian Troubadour ballad. How did that come to your attention?
You know, I've listened to, so I have an adult daughter who has spent a lot of time in Haiti on various works. And so I was familiar with some of the offbeat music, and I am a huge music lover. And honestly, not to give a plug for Spotify, but I just started to look up different music, and I found Troubadour, and I felt it was beautiful. And I can say that there were many sections of Seamus that I wrote with Troubadour playing in the background. Because it was so it was one of those happy coincidences of life that kind of intersect together for me.
Well, it's one of those interesting things, and apparently the name comes from troubadour originally, so that and as translated and passed down. So, gosh, so many fun things. Now, in addition to the corrupt politicians and the murderers and the white supremacists, you've got some really appealing protagonists here. And is there a chance we'll see more of them, or is this a one-off in your mind?
Well, thank you, Roger. Yes, there is book number 2 in the works, and many of my favorite characters. I shouldn't necessarily say my favorite characters. I've been trying to receive feedback from my readers, and certainly Maggie, Andrea, and Seamus were at the top of most people's lists. So I can assure you that that trio is coming back, and they are going to be attacking another injustice that I see in the world, and it shouldn't be a surprise based on the fact that I work for Habitat for Humanity. But the antagonists in this are developers attacking affordable housing. And I'm having an absolute blast throwing as many people under the bus as I can at this point.
You know, I realize that we progressed this far. We haven't really described the plot, and perhaps you could summarize it, because I don't want to give away anything.
The plot is not necessarily the easiest to describe, but I like to say that it's in my mind, it's a book about the importance of family and friends and your personal connections to each other, particularly in times when you're struggling against difficult circumstances. And so the book is really about a family who owns a business, and their challenging circumstances are unique because their business is being attacked by eco-terrorists. Their brother, who's a vet who has PTSD, is missing. One of the sons is gone through a divorce and is trying to find his own new way in his life. So they're dealing with these problems, all while mixed in with what's happening in our society of corrupt politicians and white supremacists, and just the hatred individuals can have for each other. And the ultimate goal of this is how this family succeeds through those struggles and ultimately gets, at least in my mind, a little bit of justice in the world, because justice so often is not found. But I believe in happy endings, so I wanted to have justice.
Thank you. That's a really apt description. I tried to write one up and I thought, you know, I'm going to mess it up. So I'm leave it to the pro on that. Also, I want to compliment you. You have, in one sense, the landscape is a character here, because there's so much interesting things going on in various parts of the state and what's going on. And one of those pieces of the landscape is a diner I very much want to go to, and that's Duke's Fine Foods. And this is the description you put of it. Arch conservatives, LGBTQ writers, rednecks, rappers, frat boys, goths, platinum Amex wielding businessmen, quarter counting day workers, drag queens, and church ladies all ate there, and being a regular was the only designation that mattered to the staff. I'm ready. I'll take you to lunch there today if we can do it.
I am too. I wish it really existed. I would love. It is a combination of a couple little diners here in town, but it is kind of the dream environment for me also, Roger. So if I find it, I will let you know, and I'll treat you to lunch there.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Also, there's some nifty little bits and pieces, one of which is Bubba, the congressman, who is, how shall I say it, not one of the brighter lights in the book, but he did do this. You have him thinking about when his committee was assigned to investigate complaints on the inefficiencies, failings, and potential corruption with the VA, and he thinks to himself as he takes a drink of Maker's Mark, Congress is the last body any sane, logical individual is assigned to such a task, particularly when it comes to efficiencies. That was sweet. It reminded me of Twain's thing about there's no Native American class except Congress, but
yeah. Well, we talked earlier about the antagonists and the characters. I have to say I had more fun writing about Bubba than I did anyone else, because I hate to say this, but there are certain Congress people here in my state right now that are pretty damn close to Bubba, and so I felt some of the things I was writing wasn't really a stretch. But it was a lot of fun to put on paper.
You also have characters who are not wholly one thing or the other. And I think of the governor's character of this as a flawed but responsible individual, and that gives you a much more real feeling about the situation than just having people who are cardboard. Because even the bad guys here have some interesting qualities to them, having to do with cleverness and political machinations.
Yeah, thank you. It was really important for me, Roger, to try to have characters as relatable as possible. One of the issues I have with so many books that I read is the characters are they're not the people you meet on the street. They're driving Bentleys, or they have these huge skills. And throughout my life in sales, I've had a chance to travel the country and observe people, and I wanted to capture that realism as much as possible. One of my favorite characters is Barry. He is certainly a flawed individual, and so many of the things, particularly as he's late in his life, I think those what he's facing are issues that so many, at least I do as I get older, thinking about some of the things that might have been acceptable that I did years ago that today in retrospect aren't, and then how you try to resolve that internally, for your own conscience. So I appreciate that you picked that up. It was really, really important for me to have good guys, bad guys, and then just the complexities of life.
When the readers put down the book, what do you hope they take away for them?
Actually, Roger, my number one goal is that they've had fun. Reading is fun. I like to read all sorts of different books, and every once in a while, it's a pleasure to have something that's fun that puts a smile on your face. So that's really my number one goal. I see this as a beach read, and something that you can appreciate. I think on a larger scale, I do hope that the reader has more of an appreciation for the outdoors, for the beauty of our country, whether that be Georgia or Oregon. I've been blessed to come out and run hood to coast several times, and you have just a fantastic state that has so much to offer. So I hope that folks appreciate the outdoors. And then really the last thing is to think about the people in your lives and how you can connect with them, whether they're the people that are close to you or just the person that you pass on the street.
Oh, that's very well said. We also want to mention where people can find the book and your website and all that good stuff.
Yes, thank you, Roger. Yes, so Bo Bancroft, and I'm not fancy, so Bo is just spelled B-O. BoBancroft.com is my website, and if you're interested, also on my website there is the first 3 chapters of this book, so you can get a feel and see if it's something that you might be interested in, and from there then you can have links available to both Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Are the 2 primary carriers of the book. So visit the website or go directly to Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
All right. We've been very pleased to talk with you today. Our guest today, Bo Bancroft. The book is Make America Beautiful Again. Highest possible recommendation. This is a keeper. Grab it and watch this author. You'll be back. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Roger. I appreciate it.